Hey friends, hey besties, welcome back to my channel. I really hope you're all doing very well. Today I'm coming at you with a video that I have been meaning to film for the longest time, and then for whatever reason I just keep putting off doing it, but today I decided was the day because I've now amassed more books, which I promised I wasn't going to do. I said that my TBR pile here was not going to get out of control like it is back in the UK. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Well, I do. It's living in close proximity to a very good Barnes & Noble. That is what happened, but here we are. So today we are basically going to be going over my entire physical TBR that I have in the US. I'm talking you through what books I am currently reading, and then obviously what is coming up on my reading agenda for the coming months that I currently already own. I will say as well, this is going to get bigger because I have like another 3 or 4 really anticipated reads that are coming out over the next few months. I am actually going back to the UK for a month over the holiday season as well, so some of those books I may end up picking up back in the UK and bringing back with me. And I am also planning on trying to bring out some of my UK TBR as well. I had to obviously, when I moved, be a little bit more reserved with the amount of books that I brought over because I needed to prioritize things like clothes and other things that I would need for actual like living out here. But when I go back for Christmas, obviously all I'll be bringing back with me pretty much is clothes that I want, any Christmas presents I may be lucky enough to get, and then also books. So I'm quite excited for that, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. But without further ado, there are quite a few books here. I haven't actually counted my physical TBR here, so what I will do is probably count it after the video and then put the number on the screen now so that you guys can see, and I'm sure it'll be in the title of the video as well. But yeah, without further ado, I'm going to talk to you first of all about the book I'm currently reading, which is The Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Canas. My Spanish pronunciation is woeful, it's basically non-existent, so please just forgive me. So this is a supernatural western with vampires. It's set in Mexico in the 1840s and is dealing with the US's invasion of Mexico, and we're following 2 characters who were childhood sweethearts who got separated after an event which you learn about quite early on in the book, but I'm just not going to spoil anything. And then they are reunited later in life, and it's them kind of coming to terms with the reality of their separation and trying to pick back up on their relationship. So yeah, it's really good. It's got this like romantic subplot. It's like slow burn. It's kind of like childhood friends to enemies to maybe lovers, and I'm really enjoying it. I started this yesterday and I'm already halfway through, and your gal has been in a reading slump. So all that to say, this book is going well so far, and I am predicting this is going to sit somewhere around a 4 or a 4.5 stars, which is really good for my first book of the month pick actually, and I'm very pleased about that. So yeah, The Vampires of El Norte. And then also my degree is starting again this month. Technically it doesn't start until the 7th, but I have got access to the university platform now, so I have started studying early just because work is so busy right now that I'm like, if I don't start now, I don't want to risk falling behind starting on the 7th. So anyway, I have my first 2 books here that I'm going to be reading. And I also have the South Sea Tales as well by Robert Louis Stevenson, which I forgot to pick up. It's in my cabinet like over there, so just imagine that I've shown you that. But basically, for anyone who doesn't know, I study English literature and creative writing through the Open University, which is an online university headquartered out in the UK, but it's kind of accessible to I think most countries, like, and it's internationally recognized. Like the degrees that come from it are exactly the same as the degree that you would get from a bricks and mortar university. Just obviously the idea of it is that you're working completely remotely, and it fits very well around people who have like full-time jobs or other kind of responsibilities that may stop them from being able to go back to school and study full-time. So I'm studying my degree part-time over 6 years, and I'm currently just beginning year 4 of 6, which is really exciting. And this year my module is Renaissance literature and the Romantics. So the first 2 books that I'm going to be studying for that are Othello by Shakespeare and The Duchess of Malfi by John Webster. So these books are both being studied in October, and my first assignment is actually going to be on The Duchess of Malfi, which is due on the 9th of November. Ooh, November 9th, gross. So that is kind of stressing me a little bit, but like it's fine. My reading list this year is kind of substantial. It's definitely the biggest reading list that they've given us so far, which does make me nervous. Most of the books on it I think are going to be quite digestible, But yeah, I am quite nervous for that, so maybe you guys will see some updates in vlogs coming up. Okay, so that is currently reading in university out of the way, so now it's onto the fun things. So I have 2 editions of this next book that I'm going to show you, but it makes sense. So the next book is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J Maas, which if you know me, you'll know is probably one of my favorite books. Well, it's not probably, it is basically one of my favorite books of all time. I am trying to reread the entire Sarah J Maas universe before Crescent City 3 is released next January. So I somehow need to get my hands on all the books because I don't actually have any of them out here. Basically, I just want to read and annotate everything because I'm trying to be one of those people with like the little pin boards that figures out all the theories before the 3rd Crescent City book comes out. I want to try and figure out where everything is interlinking, and it is going to drive me crazy if I don't manage to do that on time. So anyway, I brought my US paperback edition of House of Earth and Blood out with me because I didn't want to annotate my UK paperback, and I think I mentioned on my last video that I don't like to annotate hardbacks. So yeah, so this one will be being read and annotated after I've reread Throne of Glass and ACOTAR. But I also had to pick up the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition paperbacks of House of Earth and Blood and House of Sky and Breath because look how beautiful are these books. Like, I'm sorry, what? They are literally stunning. Look at them. I'm honestly obsessed. Like, when I saw that these were being released, I nearly lost my mind. So I picked this one up, I think 2 weeks ago when it was first released, and then this weekend I went to 3 different Barnes & Noble stores just to find the House of Sky and Breath edition because none of them had it in stock. But shout out to West Palm Beach Barnes & Noble because you guys did me a solid, and I knew you would because you always do. That was my favorite Barnes & Noble actually until I moved here, and the one that I am closest to probably is my favorite. But weirdly, I didn't go to my local one. I went to like 3 other ones that are like an hour away. But anyway, yeah, so these 2 books, these, to be honest, neither of these are going to be read. These are just going to sit on my shelves, but I'm including them in this video anyway because at some point I will be obviously rereading House of Earth and Blood and House of Sky and Breath. So anyway, I also need to get another paperback edition of House of Sky and Breath to annotate, but whatever. Anyway, we will get onto this stack that I have next to me next. So we actually have 3 non-fictions. First of all, we have Attached by Dr. Amir Levine and Rachel S.F. Heller, which is the all about like your attachment styles within relationships. Are you anxious, avoidant, or secure? And then I have The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest, which is about transforming self-sabotage into self-mastery. I've heard really good things about this, and I actually read her essay collection, 101 Essays to Change the Way You Think. Really loved that. Had some moments in it that really did actually help change the way I think, so I'm quite looking forward to reading this. And then finally I have Ask and It Is Given by Esther and Jerry Hicks, which is basically about manifestation, and I am a big believer in manifestation, so I'm looking forward to delving into that. Then we have Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Malors. This is one of my top books of the year. I read the hardback version in the UK and had to buy the paperback so that I could go through and annotate it, although I started just randomly before I moved, and I really regret using a pink highlighter because I much prefer like a grey highlighter, so that's just going to really annoy me because then I'm like, can I switch highlighter colours, or is that going to annoy me more? So that's why I haven't kind of delved back in and reread it yet. I'm also kind of waiting for when I'm in the right mood for that book, so it's quite like a melancholy, like Sally Rooney-esque kind of reading experience, and I just don't know that right now my headspace is the right one for that kind of book. So yeah, that is just going to stay on the TBR pile, and I will reread it at some point and annotate it, but I think I just need to like give myself some time. Also, there are so many books here that I'm not going to sit and give you a synopsis for each one. I'm just going to give you a very brief like overview of either why I bought the book or roughly what I know about the book, so I hope that's okay. Next up, I have Just Us, An American Conversation by Claudia Rankine. So I also recently read Citizen, An American Lyric by the same author. These are basically collections of poetry, prose, and essays by the author, all kind of relating to race relations in America and like the author's personal experiences dealing with racism and classism in the United States. They're very, very interesting reads. and very, very difficult reads as well in places. Like the first one, Citizen, it did stop and make me think like quite a lot, and I think it's really important as a new immigrant to the United States to sit and read books like that as well, because I'm very well aware that my experience as an immigrant is going to be vastly different to a lot of people's experience based purely upon my skin color. So yeah, I just feel like it's quite an important thing for me to read and to understand and to learn, and so I'm looking forward to delving into this one as well when I'm next ready, because the first one was quite hard hitting and it did affect me a little bit. Then I have Macbeth by Shakespeare, not being read for university, being read for a super secret project that I'm currently working on and will say no more about, but I love Macbeth. It's my favourite Shakespeare, just in case anyone's interested. Then we have Ripe by Sarah Rose Etter, which honestly I know next to nothing about, but it caught my eye when I was in Barnes a few weeks ago, and I was like, immediately yes. The blurbs are amazing. Someone said, holy shit, this book wrecked me. Carmen Maria Machado said, Sarah Rose Etter is a wonder and this novel is a knife to the heart. Emily Austin said, I was sucked into this novel like a black hole. Hallie Butler has the most exquisitely described dread I've read in ages. Sign me up. Oh my god, I actually forgot I had this. See, this is a good thing that I'm doing this video, because I forgot I had this book and I was really excited to read this book, and now I'm remembering I have this book. This is gonna, I just dropped that book. This is gonna make me really excited to read my TBR again. And this is annoying, okay, because I do this all the time. Like, I'm excited to read these books and then I go out and I buy more books, and then I'm more excited to read those books, and then the books that I was originally excited to read I forget about, and then we end up where we were in the UK with like 150 unread books and me just not reading any of them, and that's great. It's not great. So next we have Did You Hear About Kitty Carr by Crystal Smith-Paul, which I believe is compared to The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which, if you know me, is also one of my favorite kind of contemporary reads. So this again is like old Hollywood glamour, like an actress who dies, and then in this one I believe she bequeaths her fortune to a family that it's a very surprising turn of events and no one really knows why, and then I guess the story is finding out why. So yeah, interesting. I believe this one again deals with the theme of race relations quite heavily, so definitely I would say look up trigger warnings for this and for that, just to be on the safe side if you do pick any of these up. But that one I'm very excited to read. I think I saw that was like a book of the month pick a few months ago, and I was quite jealous of everybody who got it because it sounded amazing, and it was like immediately on my radar, but I just hadn't seen it anywhere until I went to Barnes recently. Then these are also books that I picked up at the weekend along with House of Sky and Breath. So the first is Wildfire by Hannah Grace, which is the follow-up to Icebreaker, which is my favourite sports romance and obviously a rom-com. So this will again be a sports romance and a rom-com because it features another of the guys off the hockey team. This one is Russ and Aurora, and I believe this takes place at a summer camp. And from what I've seen from the TikTok girlies already, this one is just as equally deceptively spicy as the first one. It looks like it's going to be an innocent little good time, and the quotes that I have seen say that it is anything but innocent, so I'm excited for that. Then we have Rouge by Mona Awad, which actually was quite a rogue choice for me because I absolutely despised Bunny, but when I read the synopsis for this, I was very, very intrigued, and I thought I would just like to give her one more go. This feels like it's heavily kind of fairy tale Snow White inspired, which I'm very curious about, and this cover honestly is so good. So yeah, I'm so intrigued by it, honestly. I'm looking forward to delving in and discovering if Mona Awad is an author that I kind of like, or if she's going to be just like an absolute no for me. And then we have another book that I'm very, very excited about, and I'm not usually excited about short story collections, so for me to be excited about this, I feel like this speaks volumes. But this is In These Hallowed Halls, which is edited by Marie O'Regan and Paul Kane, and this is a dark academia anthology, and the main reason why I'm excited for this is because it features stories by Olivia Blake and M.L. Rio. And M.L. Rio is the author of If We Were Villains, which is another one of my best books of the year. So yes, I picked this up as soon as I saw it had been released. I am so excited to read this book. Like, I cannot put into words how excited I am to read this book. I really want to read it this month, but I feel like November is more of a dark academia month, so it may be pushed to next month, all depending on when I get my hands on Throne of Glass, because I realised that it's probably going to take me an entire month to reread that series, especially if I'm annotating. and especially if I'm studying at the same time. So yeah, TBD on when I will get to that, but hopefully very soon. Then we have Olivia Lang's Funny Weather, Art in an Emergency, which is a collection of essays about art. And if you know me in real life, you will know I love myself some art, so I'm excited to read this. And it's not just about art, sorry, this is about art and culture, examining the roles in our political and emotional lives. So she profiles some huge artists like Georgia O'Keeffe, she interviews Hilary Mantel and Eileen Smith, writes love letters to David Bowie and Freddie Mercury, and explores loneliness and technology, women and alcohol and sex and the body. So very interesting. Then we have a Tessa Bailey. We have Secretly Yours. I actually bought this to read on the plane and then did not read it on the plane, so now I need to read it before I go back because I don't want to take physical books back to the UK with me. I want to just take my Kindle because I'm going to be bringing more physical books back from the UK to here. So yeah, anyway, this is just another Tessa Bailey rom-com. I don't know anything about this. I picked it up purely just because it was Tessa Bailey and I love her, so. Then we have A Happy Place by Emily Henry, another one that I know nothing about plot-wise but bought just because I love the author, and this was her newest release, so I'm very, very excited to eventually get around to reading it. If you watched my first book haul in the US, you will know that I picked this up then, and I'm honestly so surprised that I haven't got around to it yet, but I've not really been in a romance mood recently. I've been more in like a fantasy, dark academia, kind of melancholy girl moment, so that's why I just haven't really felt drawn to pick this up yet, but I do want to pick it up soon because I did read that she has another book on the way. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but I think it's not too long away before it does. It's like the worst English I've ever spoken. So yeah, I want to pick this up soon. I do love Emily Henry's special brand of rom-com. It is very palatable for me and I very much enjoy her characterization and the banter between her characters. It's always next level. Then we have The List by Yomi Adegoke, which is another book that I bought for the plane. I actually bought this in the airport. And this is about a woman who is engaged to a guy that kind of doesn't put a foot wrong. He's like super lovely and perfect and everything she could possibly want. And she works for like a newspaper. She gets into work one day and everyone's like, oh my God, did you see the list? And she's like, no, what list? And the list is basically a list of men who have been implicated in sexual assault claims and her future husband's name is on the list. So I am excited to read that, but I do wonder if it could be one of those where it is quite triggering, so TBD. Then we have Masters of Death by Olivia Blake, which is a vampire-esque fantasy. So this is a vampire real estate agent who is trying to sell a house that is haunted by a ghost, and the ghost refuses to leave the house until she manages to find out how the ghost died because the ghost was murdered. So I believe she enlists the help of a medium and a whole host of other supernatural characters, and it sounds really fun. And I'm sorry, but just look at the end pages. The cover art for this book is beautiful. This is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, in case anyone's wondering, and I lost my mind when I saw this in store. So yes, I am very excited to read this. You know I love me some Olivia Blake, and I believe the next Atlas 6 book is coming out very soon as well. I do have it on pre-order from Waterstone, so I'm very excited to read that. Then we have the unabridged journals of Sylvia Plath, which is exactly what it says on the tin. It is Sylvia Plath's private journals that are completely unabridged and unedited and have been bound and released for our reading pleasure. I mentioned in my haul video actually where I featured this, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel very excited and kind of like honoured to be able to delve into the mind of a literary goddess. But also these journals were never intended for like commercial sale. They were never intended to be read by anyone other than her, and so therefore I do wonder if there is like voyeurism side of reading something that was never intended for release, and are we actually not respecting her privacy and just letting her like rest in peace basically. So yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about this. I have heard that it is harrowing and there are a lot of very, very sad quotes that I have seen from this book, but I am also, like I say, intrigued and excited to delve in and, you know, understand the inner workings of her mind a little more. So yeah, I will kind of let you guys know how I feel about that when I eventually read it in a wrap up. I did have some really interesting conversations actually in the comments of that video as well, which I really, really appreciated. It was my favorite kind of comment exchange that I've had so far on YouTube. So yes, I very much appreciated that, and that's the kind of conversation that I feel like I want to be able to incite on this channel, you know. Anyway, next up we have my other book of the month pick that I have had through so far, and that is The Intern by Michelle Campbell, which is a political thriller. And I believe this is the intern of, like, I think like a local, to be honest, I'm still terrible with like the political terminology in the States. I want to say like a senator? Okay, no, a judge. So it's the intern for a judge, and her brother ends up getting implicated in some kind of trial, and the judge is kind of overseeing that trial, and it's like that kind of conflict of interest and everything else. I'm excited to see, though, there's like a murder plot involved somewhere, and I'm stoked to see how it all plays out. It sounded very good from the synopsis and from like the little brief excerpt that I could read on the Book of the Month website, so I am definitely intrigued to delve into it and see if it is actually as good as it sounded. And I like the idea of reading kind of a political thriller with a bit of a murder plot at this time of the year. You know, we're in October, we're in spooky season. So yes, speaking of spooky season as well, I also have the latest Riley Sager release, which is the only one left, which again is kind of like a murder mystery vibe. This woman's living in a house, her entire family died in this house, and I think she's like been rendered mute, so she has to communicate via typing, and whoever it is that's caring for her is speaking to her one day, and she just decides to type out the story of exactly what happened to her family and why she is the only one left. Riley Sager's books, they're kind of hit and miss for me, so I do love his writing, but I find some of them are absolutely terrifying and others are just like not so much, but I still always have like a good time. So yeah. Then we have another Olivia Lang. We actually have The Lonely City, which I bought pretty much because I expected myself to feel very lonely in Miami to begin with, and I thought this might, you know, help me deal with it, and actually so far I've not felt lonely at all. But this again is a collection of essays about art, but all kind of to do with the theme of loneliness and solitude. So yeah, it says adventures in the art of being alone, and at some point I will read this when the time feels right and when I feel like I'm in the headspace to need that kind of extra, I guess, like emotional support from a book. Sorry if I look slightly different. My SD card just decided to fill up on me, which I feel like is incredibly rude. So also on the same theme of spooky season, we have episode 13 by Craig DeLuey, which is a supernatural investigation-esque horror, I suppose, where the supernatural investigation team is at the paranormal research headquarters, I believe, and they're starting to realize that everything they thought they knew about kind of ghosts and ghouls and things that went bump in the night are false. And this looks really freaking creepy, honestly. So I want to read it this month, but also I am not gonna lie to you guys, I am terrified about reading that book. There is a reason I haven't picked it up yet, and that reason is that I live alone and I'm frightened, honestly. Then we have One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, which I feel like every single person in the entire world is reading right now. I believe there was a TikTok earlier on in the year that kind of compared this to Fourth Wing, in one of those senses of, if you liked Fourth Wing, you will like this, or I think this is better than Fourth Wing. So I think that's kind of why it's so hyped at the moment, and then when I read the synopsis I had to pick it up. Speaking of romance, I actually picked these up at a silent book club which I have joined in Miami, and I love it so much. I'm actually meeting like other bookish friends and it makes me so happy. But we all did a book swap at a recent meeting, and so obviously that meant we took a book that we no longer wanted and picked up a book that we did. And I got rid of Speak of the Devil, which I read on the plane over here and just didn't vibe with that much. But I did pick up Neon Gods by Katie Roberts, which I do also actually technically have on my Kindle, but I prefer reading physically, so I'm excited to read this. This is, I think, a Persephone and Hades and Persephone retelling. I know it's definitely Greek gods and apparently incredibly spicy. And then the girl who brought this said she actually had the second book in her car and that I could have that too. So I also have Electric Idol, which I don't know if this is also Hades and Persephone or if each book in this series is featuring different gods, but yes. So I have these to read. I'm very excited. I have been wanting to read them for ages because I know everybody loves them. Then I have a classic. I have The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas, which is a tale of revenge, basically. Follows this guy who was thrown into prison for a crime he didn't commit, and then once he is released, he spends his rest of his life basically trying to get vengeance on the man who put him there in the first place. We love a grudge. We love a good grudge. So yeah, I'm excited to read that. I'm just kind of put off right now because I don't know that I have the time to commit to a brick of a classic, but I think once this university year is over, I will be delving into that along with some other classics that I want to bring back to the States with me, including Anna Karenina and Crime and Punishment, and also Don Quixote as well. Those three are kind of like the ones in my collection back home that I really want to read soon. Then we have another couple of non-fictions. So first of all, we have Bluets by Maggie Nelson, which is like a series of musings all relating to the colour blue. A recent date that I went on said that this was life-changing for him, so I immediately picked it up, because if someone tells me a book is life-changing, probably going to read it. Then we also have Just Kids by Patti Smith, which is a reread for me. I had this book at home, and then I don't know where it went, but it disappeared, and I really wanted to reread it and couldn't. So I decided to pick up a new copy in Barnes & Noble. This copy has deckled edges, which at first I really loved, but actually in hindsight I'm not sure I'm that thrilled about, because I did want to annotate this, and I don't know how good it will look annotated with the deckled edges. But this basically is Patti Smith's journey to New York and her subsequent life there, kind of getting involved with the art scene, her relationship with Robert Mapplethorpe, and how her kind of music and art career began. And I remember reading this the first time and being absolutely transported by it, and I'm just very excited to read it again when I'm going through my own kind of transformative and very creative journey. Then we have In the Reeds by V.K. Borison, which is a Love Light Farms book. I think this might have been the second or the third book in the series, and it follows Evelyn St. James and Beckett, which I'm very stoked for, because Love Light Farms was my favourite Christmas read last year. I'm about to run out of battery, so I'm going to quick fire through the last two. We have Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson, which is a young adult fantasy that I have been super excited to read, based upon literally everybody on YouTube loving this book. And then finally The Idiot by Elif Batuman, which I think is like a contemporary literary fiction, Sally Rooney-esque book about a girl at university in States who goes back to Europe for the summer and then just has like a very strange summer experience, which is not what she is expecting. And so my friends, that is my entire US physical TBR. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know in the comments. Sorry I had to rush the ending. Subscribe if you are new, and I will see you in another video very soon. Goodbye.